This is a video on laws in Hitman, and as you can probably see, this is a long video because there are so many ways to manipulate NPCs to move to new positions. These tricks are the bread and butter of challenge runs, speed runs, and skilled gameplay in general. I hope it can be helpful to players both new and experienced, as I'll try to cover as much as possible from essentials to the nitty-gritty details that even some experienced players might not know. I'm vaguely defining a law as something that you can use to cause an NPC to move somewhere. I'd consider this a subset of distractions, but I won't be covering distractions that don't move NPCs, simply because I have to stop somewhere. As well as hoping I can help some players learn some stuff, I'm also just hoping to highlight the insane number of options this game provides, though do be warned, some of this stuff is just kinda silly, in a good way. But first I'll start going over the more fundamental types of laws before diving into the more niche, obscure and advanced stuff. So let's start with some basics. A staple of stealth gaming, the thrown object law. Throw an item somewhere to have an NPC go to investigate that spot. Simple, right? Well, welcome to Hitman. In order for any NPC to go to a thrown law, it's important that you're not seen throwing it. Also, if the object is bigger than a coin and an NPC sees it flying, then instead of a thrown law, you will instead begin initiating a visible thrown law.
Hey, that's not cool.
A visible throw law is where you throw a non-suspicious object bigger than a coin and an NPC sees it flying midair. While a normal throw law has an NPC investigate just the noise made by the object colliding, with a visible throw law, they actually see the object and are more aware someone threw it. Because of this, they will not be fooled if they see you within a certain window of time after they saw it fly. If you manage to stay out of their sight until they finish looking for the person who threw it though, they will begin heading to the landing spot of the item. This law has quite an incredible range if used from a height, as you can throw it to lower levels to get the NPC to cover a lot of ground.
Target down. Next up.
Chain laws are an extension of thrown laws. Once an NPC is responding to a thrown item, throwing the same item again before they stop in the original position, and ensuring they hear it, will cause them to update and head to the new position. You can keep repeating this process to lure the NPC indefinitely. And even if other NPCs hear the item, the NPC currently on the hook will always be the one to follow. It's fine if other NPCs see you throwing the item, so long as the one you're luring doesn't. It's a very powerful trick for taking an NPC somewhere more private, but does require some finesse to pull off consistently. Do keep in mind that this mechanic can be a hazard too. In some scenarios you might try to lure an NPC with a thrown lure and not catch them. Then you may try and re-attempt it with the same item. But if another NPC already heard and is responding to that item, you won't be able to lure using that item until the first investigation has finished.
What the hell is that? Sir, you need to pick that up now or we'll have to destroy it.
Okay. Find out what that was.
A visible law is when you place an attractive item such as a coin, ducky, small gold bar, phone, and so on for an NPC to see. This will cause them to go to it and attempt to pocket it. Finders keepers rules apply. A sleight of hand law is what I'm calling the trick of doing a visible law using an item that an NPC wants to pick up, but then picking up the item immediately after they notice it. The NPC will still go to where the item was, but end up standing around looking confused. And you get to keep the item. If you're too slow and the NPC is already walking before you pick up the item, the NPC will notice you pick it up and abandon the law completely. This is a key to the next law. A trail law is the process of chaining visible laws using two or more items. Start out with a visible lure by placing an attractive item for an NPC to see, then place another attractive item further along so that the NPC will see it by the time that they reach the first item. This process can be continued for as many attractive items as you have, with the NPC stopping to pick up each one along the way. They will usually noticeably stop and look at the next item before picking up the current one. However, you may want to keep the items, or lure the NPC a larger distance with only 2 items to work with. In this case, you may pick up the first item after the NPC notices the second one, and the NPC will go to the second one, and you can just repeat this process. But if you recall what we learned with the sleight of hand lure, picking up an item without the NPC noticing will cause them to stand around where it was, acting confused for a few seconds. This costs time, so in this case we'd rather have the opposite effect. If you make sure to pick up the first item while their attention is still on it, they will stop caring about that item and immediately head to the next item, allowing you to smoothly trail the NPC with no pauses. Various actions 47 performs will generate sound that the AI can hear, usually in order to get you caught. They can hear many combat actions like the sound of fighting an NPC, and the hearing range and reaction of the AI differs depending on the action. Even dragging bodies generates a small radius of noise that may wake a sleeping guard or lure them around an open wall. See the description for a link to a spreadsheet containing sound range values pulled from the game files. You can put 1 or more NPCs into an alert state in order to manipulate their positions. The way NPCs react to being alerted depends mainly on whether they are a guard or a civilian. Civilians will cower and run to report to guards, whereas guards will patrol around, aware and suspicious of any Hitman-like people. Civilians will still enforce if they're suspicious of your disguise, or see you doing non-trespassing suspicious actions. In this example, a fire alarm is pulled to alert a whole area. All the civilians who can hear the alarm will stop enforcing trespassing, but guards will be suspicious if you are trespassing. So long as you won't be trespassing in your current disguise, sentry guards, guards who guard entry points, will not care if you run straight past. We can run through an invite-only area or a frisk point while guards are in this state. Alertness from explosions works very similar. Guards will only enforce if you're trespassing and attempt to control the area, civilians will get scared and stop enforcing trespassing, and sentry guards won't really notice you slipping past. Gunfire can also be used to raise alerts, however, guards will enforce if they are alerted to gunfire, even if you're in a public area. 47 just looks like the guy to fire a gun, I guess.
Command, I'm here now, and
In most cases, only one civilian will report a single source of an alert to the nearest guards. In this example, we fire a loud gunshot on the stairs, which disables the trespassing enforcement of the civilians up ahead. The housekeeper below will be the one to report to the guards nearest to him, so the civilians ahead will just cower in place and the guards out front aren't made aware. This, along with a lot of things, can vary, as alerts usually cause more dynamic and random behavior in NPCs than usual. They will still acknowledge thrown items, for example, but they will approach with caution, if at all. If a civilian NPC is a mission target, they usually enter lockdown if they are made alert directly. However, if they are made alert indirectly, such as by coming into contact with guards who are alert, they will enter what's commonly known as a soft lockdown, which is similar to the normal civilian alert state, where they will act scared, but they will usually run to a safer spot and may be protected by guards. Alerts are barely even laws, but they can be used to manipulate NPC positions with minimal amount of precision, and while it often makes NPCs less predictable, it can be useful in many situations once you learn what to expect. It's especially useful on groups of NPCs or NPCs in odd arrangements.
Command, how do you read me? Over. Someone is causing a public commotion.
And bullet distractions are back.
You can lure NPCs a certain distance by firing a bullet that lands within 10 meters of their position. If you do this without arousing suspicion, it will cause a casual distraction that they will investigate. If the NPC hears more than one bullet or other gun sound within 60 seconds, they will go into alert and not respond to the bullet lure casually. This will work with any kind of bullet, and all bullet impacts have the same noise range of 10 meters. Even loud guns can be used, so long as the NPC doesn't hear the sound of the gunshot itself. See the AI hearing range document in the descriptions for details on ranges. In some cases, a single bullet can cause 2 or more impact sounds due to penetration. Certain materials will allow bullets to pass through. In this example, the bullet penetrates the glass door, making the impact sound inside, then hits a wall outside, making a second impact sound out there. As these are separate closed-off sound zones, neither NPC hears 2 impacts, and both will follow the laws. Multiple impacts from one bullet can commonly be a danger, as it can be hard to predict where they will occur. For example, you may fire a bullet somewhere thinking that the NPCs will only hear one impact, but instantly receive a bullet impact noticed, as there is actually a penetratable material being hit first. It can be a bit counterintuitive at times, so whenever possible you should prefer to aim for the ground or at a solid wall surface. Another common danger that trips many players up is what I call underfire instaspot, commonly misnomered as illegal action delay. If you imagine a 10-meter circle around NPCs in which they hear bullet impacts, there's a smaller 3 to 4 meter circle around them, where those impacts will cause the NPC to instantly spot you if they saw even a glimpse of you within the last 5 seconds, or if they can draw line of sight to you soon after they hear it, generally before they finish turning. Basically, they realize that they're under the threat of gunfire and instantly spot you as a result.
Got some string.
Suspicion gained from trespassing enforcement will cause NPCs to turn towards you. If the suspicion meter gets full enough, the NPC will walk to the position you last had suspicion in before they decided to follow. The preciseness of this may come down to FPS, but it's generally quite reliable in getting NPCs to move while trespassing, so long as you avoid actually getting spotted. If you aim a gun at an NPC, you can cause the suspicion from them to grow faster than other NPCs who may also be looking at you, which is good for speeding up a peekaboo or ensuring that the correct NPC follows. If 2 NPCs have similar amounts of suspicion, VIP behavior may be invoked, with one NPC sending the other one to go.
Alright, go check it out.
Remember that the suspicion must be from the NPC enforcing trespassing.
Okay.
This can be indicated by the enforcer dot above their heads. However, this dot can also represent illegal action or disguise enforcement. And peekaboo won't work on those NPCs unless they also care about you trespassing. An easy mistake to make is to be aiming a gun at an NPC to peekaboo them faster, but the NPC won't follow because they were only enforcing you holding the gun, and have no dot above their head when the gun is concealed. Only one NPC at a time will respond to a peekaboo. If another NPC is already responding to a peekaboo, then you effectively become more protected from being caught in trespassing areas. However, once the previous peekaboo ends, any other NPCs who recently had suspicion on you may react at that moment.
Meh.
Revered and reviled.
You also can't peekaboo an already peekabooed NPC again until they finish responding to the first one. You can try and cancel their response by doing an action like dropping an item in their view. If you are still trespassing, then being in their view long enough can peekaboo them again after they finish responding to the drop. If you want to avoid this or have a chance to move before the next peekaboo, I recommend dropping the item well out of sight, then quickly revealing and hiding yourself again to cause the NPC to react while spending the minimum amount of time in their view cone.
That was nothing.
If you make an NPC sick using an emetic tool or poison, they will head to an unoccupied place to throw up in, which may be isolated or in full view of 50 NPCs, but is usually secluded. They will stop enforcing against 47 trespassing or holding illegal items, but will still react to crimes, and their nauseous state will be cancelled if they're alerted or panicked. Once they reach a sick spot, they will vomit for 60 seconds. After that, they'll return to normal. If you want to increase the duration they vomit for, you can actually stack another emetic on top of them. This way, after they finish their first round of puking, they will start chundering all over again for another 60 seconds.
Oh, this isn't good. Oh, I don't think this is good at all.
However, this time they'll be a bit less committed to it. They will still enforce and respond to distractions during the second round.
Huh. No, honestly, tell me, what good did that accomplish?
By moving around while concealed in foliage, nearby NPCs can react to the sound. If an NPC is looking in 47's direction, they can react visually to the foliage. With enough movement in them, which can vary from instantaneous to fucking hell, why isn't this NPC coming? Depending on how the NPC feels, they will eventually start heading to wherever they last notice your movement and will continue following if they see or hear more movement. This can be cancelled if you reveal yourself or they catch up to you.
Oh.
A fairly intuitive one. Set-piece lures are when you interact with a sink, radio, generator, fuse box, car alarm, falling object, breakable door, or other static map objects to lure an NPC to it for some time.
Alright, stay put. I'll take a look.
Okay.
The time that the NPC is kept busy for varies, as can the range of the lure and which areas it affects NPCs in.
Yes, sir.
Many of these can be shot to change their state, and some can even be destroyed permanently with enough damage caused. Some set-piece items such as fuse boxes and generators will toggle the state of another object in the map, such as toggling lights or even certain power sources. With these types, the NPCs closest to the thing it toggles are usually the ones lured to the point of sabotage. Many of these set pieces have specific NPCs that the level designers have scripted to react to them. An event or trigger is a mission-specific feature that can affect one or more NPC routines. These can be part of a mission story like the fireworks trigger in Paris, the observatory panel in Sapienza, or the race ending in Miami. The best way to learn about these is to play through and experiment with main mission stories.
I'd like to inspect the penthouse now.
They can have small or even large effects on the map, and effective use of them requires knowledge of what will be affected and how NPCs will move afterwards. They're a great way to control where certain NPCs are going to be and what they're going to be doing in the future, especially main mission targets. A confiscation lure is when you abandon a weapon or briefcase for an NPC to find. How do you abandon a weapon or briefcase? Simple, you just leave it somewhere, right? Well, first consider association. If you put a briefcase down somewhere, you may not actually want random strangers coming up and taking it away from you. So the game has an association mechanic, where NPCs will actually ignore briefcases if you leave them close to you and they can see you buy them. This also applies to weapons, but only if you're in a disguise allowed to carry them. To abandon an item, either hide out of sight or move far away enough from the item until they take notice of it.
That's gonna upset my day.
Guard NPCs will approach the item, pick it up, and take it to the nearest crate around the map, designated for confiscated contraband, or lost and found if you prefer. The NPC will then return to their routine. Civilian NPCs won't touch weapons and will instead go to a guard to report it. They will, however, take abandoned briefcases to guards themselves. If an NPC sees a briefcase or weapon and starts heading towards it, and you manage to pick it up and move it to a new position, they will go to that new position if they see it before they get to the old one. If the NPC sees you with the briefcase or weapon before they get to it, they will abandon the law, and in the case of weapons, they will tell you off for having it out.
Hey, look, there's no threat here, okay? Just put it away.
Guards guarding certain checkpoints are called sentries, who have unique behavior. They will not handle confiscation themselves, instead radioing in to a nearby guard to deal with it instead. And a lot of the same rules apply when it comes to redirection and seeing you with the item. Melee weapons will not be carried off to boxes or noticed while they're lying on the ground. However, you can still trigger part of the confiscation mechanics by throwing an illegal melee item past an NPC's view cone. Unlike with visible throw laws, they will not turn to see where the object was thrown from, but instead their vision will be locked onto the item. If it's a civilian seeing it, then they will go and head to a guard to report it, just like if they saw a weapon lying on the ground.
I just found a weapon back there. Doesn't exactly make me feel safe.
You just stand back.
The guard will come to investigate the area the weapon landed, but will not actually do anything about it.
Whatever.
If it's a guard seeing it, then they will just go straight to the landing spot of the item. If another NPC is around to hear the impact of the object landing, then they will treat it like an ordinary throw law, while the NPC who identified it as a weapon will do their confiscation behavior. This can be used to effectively lure two NPCs, or lure one while making a civilian go and report to a guard.
I suppose you also...
A glitch you can do using these mechanics involves sticking an illegal item onto a rat poison before ever picking it up, and then picking up the rat poison. Now while carrying the rat poison, you can basically move the explosive with it without actually holding it directly, allowing you to comically put guards on a leash and walk them around as much as you want. There are many audio gadgets that can be used to lure NPCs, so many that it would be silly for me to go over all of them. So first is probably the two most powerful audio devices for luring, the ICA flash phone and explosive phone. The remote activatable, not suspicious to civilians, and share a place with the gold brick proximity mine snail thing and the almost useless iconator in having the largest audio range of any audio device. You can use these items for visual lures and also use them as remote activated audio lures that will cover a large radius. There's advanced lures you can do with these too, which we'll go over later. The one obvious downside to these items is that once an NPC answers them, they will flash or explode, so use wisely. Next up, the gold brick proximity mine, or the Snail, another item that has the largest audio radius. It has some weird quirks unique to it, and also an advanced lure you can only do with this item. Unlike the phones, it starts making noise as soon as you put it down, so you don't have the option of triggering it remotely at a specific time. If you're able to set it up to lure an NPC though, it will sedate them for you. The iconator is basically the same deal. It's a proximity device that kabooms when an NPC gets close enough and makes a sound as soon as you put it down. Overall, it's not the most useful or unique item, so there's not much to say about it. An audio device making sound as soon as you put it down can be useful, and while Lil Flashy and Napoleon Blown Apart don't have quite the range of the previous items, their explosive payloads are remote activated rather than proximity based, meaning that if you just want to use them as audio devices with a unique range on the chart, you can do so without sedating or kabooming the NPC when you don't want to. Lil Flashy also flashes, which is unique and occasionally useful, even if for nothing more than a short range explosion sound to take advantage of alerts. The squeaky toy can only be found in certain levels, but we can unlock and bring a red tie kiwi with the same behaviour except it won't make noise when stepped on. They can be made to squeak by dropping them, throwing them, or making something or someone collide into them. This makes an audio lure but destroys them in the process, making them a one-time use. Overall it has some niche uses but not often. Since the range of the squeak is 5 meters smaller than the thrown object sound range, throwing it at a certain distance can lure two NPCs with only one hearing the squeak and the other hearing it land. There are more items in certain maps with unique behaviours like the wristwatch, alarm and portable radio. Honestly, my experience with these is limited because it's rare to find yourself both having and needing to use one, but the wristwatch alarm is especially unique as it's the only item in the game that works on an actual timer, an 8-second delay before it automatically activates. You also have 4 basic modular ICA audio devices to choose from. They all work identically with a 10 meter range, but one of them has the purely aesthetic difference of playing music rather than beeping, so it's superior in every way. These items are all suspicious to NPCs, and they'll treat them like bombs, with civilians reporting them and guards taking them away. This makes it hard to set one up somewhere that you can detonate it later and not have it be found first, and it also means that if you try and lure a civilian with one, they can only get so close before they'll usually be able to see it, and then they'll turn away and report to a guard, which isn't the most ideal behaviour for an audio luring device in my opinion, unless you want to use it to get rid of a guard. What's a better audio luring device? How about a device made to breach open doors? The breaching charges actually secretly have most of the benefits of many of the audio devices. The explosion of one is relatively quiet and doesn't alert NPCs, but instead lures them in the same range as an audio device. And because the item erases all trace of itself on detonation, the NPC will go all the way to where it was without seeing it and reporting it to a guard. Obviously though, you still have to ensure that it isn't seen and taken away beforehand, and it's a one-shot lure. You can't leave it playing, so you need to be sure the NPC you want is in range at the moment you detonate. The micro audio device fixes many of the issues I have with the other modular audio devices. It has a slightly smaller range than all of them, which can be an advantage, but it also cannot be seen by NPCs until they're lured to it. Once you trigger it, it continually beeps until someone picks it up. This device can also lure multiple NPCs in some cases.
Nothing again.
The big one is probably the most unique of the bunch. Rather than luring a single NPC, it acts as an attractor for all NPCs who happen to be in range of it. The audio range of the sparking noise it makes is pretty small, but throwing it to the ground makes the same level of noise as any other thrown object. The really interesting thing though is that any NPCs who start looking at it will keep looking at it for the duration of the 12 seconds it remains ignited. Not only that, but they will be unable to hear most other sounds in the meantime. This includes sounds from actions such as pushing someone over a railing, and they will even ignore bullet impact and silenced gunshot sounds. Basically, the only things that will distract them from the wonder of looking at the big one are explosions and loud gunshots. The NPCs will also try to avoid getting too close to it, preferring to watch it from a short distance. One important thing to note about devices that emit sound is that they don't invoke VIP behavior, so long as only the desired NPC hears it. VIP behavior is the term for when one NPC tells another nearby NPC to investigate a sound rather than investigating it themselves. This will actually happen with any kind of NPC, and guards will always have priority over civilians in investigating sounds. The reason we call it VIP behavior is because with thrown object sounds, NPCs who are main mission targets or VIPs will also often tell other nearby NPCs to investigate the sound for them, even if the other NPC did not hear it. So long as the other NPC is within talking range of them, in the same room, and is not already distracted. This notably doesn't happen with sounds emitted by devices. The NPC will always want to go themselves, providing they're the only ones who hear it, VIP or not, which can be a big advantage. Causing a main story target NPC to lock down will result in them running to one of the designated save points in the map, which are usually specific to each individual target. The decision of which save point to go to can depend on a number of factors, including where they perceive the danger to be coming from. Depending on where they are when you lock them down and how you lock them down, sometimes they will consistently head to the same location. Other times it may be a bit more random and unpredictable where exactly they will end up. They will often try to avoid where they perceive to be the source of the threat, and up to 4 guards who happen to notice a locking down NPC will begin to escort them to the safe zone. Guards will try very hard to make it impossible for you to isolate a target under lockdown. But in some cases, you may be able to choreograph a perfect way to kill the target right under their noses. While often difficult to orchestrate, this can be very satisfying to actually pull off. Alternatively, with knowledge of where the target will lock down, you could just have a trap waiting for them. Once the target and any escort guards have reached a safe zone, they can be influenced to leave it and run to another one if signs of danger occur close enough to them. A bullet landing, an explosion going off, or the target noticing a guard panic can cause them to decide to consider the current safe zone compromised and head to the next one. This is often referred to as bad shelter. There are many more things I could say about lockdown mechanics, as they are somewhat complex and can combine with other mechanics, but this covers the parts most relevant to actually manipulating the NPC's positions. A gunshot lure is using the noise caused by discharging a firearm to lure an NPC towards the position of the gun. Note that this is the sound of the gun firing itself, not the bullet impact. This can be achieved with silenced guns and dart guns. The range of the sound depends on the type of gun. With silence guns, the number of gun perks determines the radius of the gunshot sound. So the Krugermeyer with the additional subsonic perk can only be heard by NPCs relatively close to 47, whereas the ICA-19 with only the suppressor perk can be heard from a bit further away. To ensure the NPC isn't just alerted from hearing the sound of the gunshot and also the sound of the bullet impact, it's a good idea to aim the gun towards the sky, or at least so the bullet lands far away. In this example, since this fence does not act as a sound barrier, we can fire the Krugermeyer to lure the guard on the other side. When the target arrives, we wouldn't be able to lure him with the Krugermeyer as the subsonic gunshot sound is too quiet, so we can use an ordinary silence pistol provided by the guard to lure him. With this distance, we assure that only he hears it, so we can even avoid VIP behavior. You can fire a gun close to a wall in such a way that NPCs will hear the sound of the gunshot on the other side, even though they wouldn't hear a bullet impact from it. However, in most, or possibly all cases, this will only lure the NPC closer to the wall on the other side. We will cover what happens when you do this with an empty gun next, which can actually be easily used to lure NPCs to the other side. However, it's worth noting that unlike the next lure, since a gunshot can be heard through a wall, you can take advantage of this to put the NPC into an alert state. It's worth warning that even across an otherwise soundproof threshold, doing a gunshot with a loud gun close enough to the wall that an NPC on the other side hears will alert the NPC, and you will experience loud gunshot proximity insta-spot. If an NPC gets alerted by a loud gunshot and you happen to be in close proximity to them, you will be compromised by them, even if you're on the other side of a wall or on another floor. A gun click lure is where you lure an NPC using the click sound that an empty gun makes while trying to fire it. This is similar to the gunshot lure, but distinct in a few important ways. The biggest one is that an empty gun click doesn't count as a gun sound for NPCs, so you can repeatedly perform it on the same NPC without alerting them. It also has a lower priority than gun sounds, so they won't actually react at all to a gun click if they are currently investigating a gunshot lure or a bullet lure. Like with gunshots, NPCs can hear this through walls if you hold the gun close enough to one. You can even use this to lure NPCs to your side of the wall in some cases. It can be finicky as the precise position of the gun matters, but thanks to being able to do it repeatedly to the same NPC, you get unlimited attempts, unlike with gunshots. This does depend on map geometry and sound zones though, as some walls seem way harder or impossible to actually lure an NPC to the other side of, and instead the most you'll be able to do is get them closer to their side of the wall. To maximize your chances, repeatedly click the gun while moving it closer and closer to the wall, and once you notice the NPC bite, start doing the same while moving backwards. The obvious downside to this is you need to have an empty gun. So for silence guns, that will mean spending some time emptying out your gun somewhere discreet before you're able to do it. Dart guns and the custom 5mm have a much smaller pool of ammo though, so you can empty those much faster. And in the case of dart guns, you're more likely to have made use of them in time to use this lure. It's possible to make an NPC go upstairs by throwing an item or firing a bullet at the ceiling, or high enough on a wall. This is another thing that is very dependent on the geometry and sound zones of the map, and you may find that in some areas or whole maps this is impossible, or the sounds are heard by people upstairs instead. The easiest cases are where you can throw an item or fire a bullet at a part of the ceiling that has a floor above that can be pathed to. Any obstacles on the top floor that obstruct an NPC pathing there will prevent the lure from working at all. When it does work, the NPC will go upstairs to the part of the floor where the distraction was aimed. In the areas with weird sound propagation, notably most of Chongqing and many areas of Santa Fortuna as of recording, you may only be able to get NPCs above to hear the sounds high up, and it can be impossible to send an NPC up. So you need to experiment and learn where this works, but it's relatively uncommon. In even rarer cases, you might even be able to find positions where NPCs above that here can actually be brought down using this trick. While the technique of luring an NPC upstairs is obviously called an upstairs lure, using the same technique to lure an NPC downstairs should of course be called an inverted upstairs lure. Panics, or blind panics, are when an NPC goes into a state of mostly being focused on combat in the case of guards, or blinded by fear in the case of civilians. A lot of changes and refinements to these mechanics were introduced through Hitman 2 patches, where the developers referred to at least part of these mechanics as sniper shot location, as they primarily exist as a way for NPCs to respond to sniping situations in a way that's more fair than the instant compromised behavior of Hitman 2016. A panicked civilian will be blind to most, but not all, things they would usually enforce against, and guards will be similarly mostly blind, but will also immediately spot 47 if they find him in the area the shots came from. There is so much complexity to these mechanics that they really deserve their own video, and I do have another video going over this stuff a bit, but here I'll mostly be covering the aspects of these mechanics most relevant to using them to manipulate NPC movement. Be aware that the way I'm defining panic here is different from simply scaring an NPC, which I've covered earlier under alerts, as merely scared civilians will still remain relatively alert, while panics remove awareness from them. In other words, they panic. The easiest way to panic any kind of NPC is to non-lethally hit an NPC with a bullet. This is the only method that will work on civilians. Any NPC shot, witnessing another NPC get shot, or coming into contact with other NPCs who witnessed a shooting will enter panic mode. Civilians will then go almost completely blind to all but the most severe of 47's crimes and instead focus on running away from him. In most cases, they won't even report to a guard, though if a guard sees them, they will get involved and panic too. For guards, not only do body shots work to cause them and surrounding NPCs to panic, making them aware they are under the threat of gunfire at all will cause them to enter this combat state. The simplest way to do this is by making them hear 3 bullet impacts, though other combinations such as having them hear a gunshot and then hear 2 bullet impacts can also work. This will cause a short period where the guard and any other guards who notice will go to investigate where the bullets landed. The time they investigate the bullet impact area and do their super fast expert ballistics bullet trajectory calculations likely depends on how far away you were when you fired the shots. After this, they will know exactly where the shots came from, and consider the place where you fired them as the shooter's last known position. If you get caught in this range, you will be compromised and instantly enter combat. If you're outside of that range, then you are considered insignificant to them, even if you're literally holding a gun and firing shots right in front of them. However, if they hear a gunshot from the gun viewfinder, the last known position will update to where you are and they will compromise you if they see you. Also, for whatever reason, if they see you doing certain climbing actions such as vaulting, that also seems to get you instantly spotted. So firing a gun in front of them is fine, but parkour is a big no-no. That's just too damn French. In some cases, particularly when you do this from some kind of sniping vantage point, guards may actually try to return fire on you. Very, very ineffectively. After any homing guards arrive in the area they consider the last known position, they will leave panic mode and drop back down into alert mode. When they do this, it's important to not be within sight of any of the previously panicked guards, because they will instantly compromise you in this moment if they can see you. You can think of this like while they were panicked, they were basically at 99% suspicion while they were looking at you, but once they drop back down into alert mode, that last 1% will take an instant to fill. Again, there's so much more to these mechanics and they are so complex that I won't pretend to understand every detail enough to commit to explaining it right now. Even the developers didn't claim to understand. Things can vary in terms of which guards will run to the last known position versus which will stay. Sometimes you may not lure the guard you're expecting unless you are sure only they notice the bullet fire. Trying to use multiple panics at once will simply make new NPCs join the existing hive mind, and these also combine with lockdowns. So when a target sees a panicked guard, they will instantly lock down, and up to 4 guards around them will switch to escorting the target rather than homing. And guards may start to roleplay as blood money guards by trying to gun you down without even compromising you. There is also possibly FPS dependence based on how view cones are processed and more. The iceberg goes deep. But hopefully you understand enough to have a basic understanding of these and figure out specifics from there depending on the situation. NPC bodies can obviously be used as bait for other NPCs. In order to do this in a silent assassin way, the body must be safe to find, or the NPC being lured must be a target and the only one to see the body, so you can kill them afterwards and restore your rating. Whether a body will be safe for non-targets to find is based on a few very simple game rules. If the body is of a KO'd non-target or a dead target, and the cause of KO or death was accident or poison, and the body wasn't dragged afterwards, then the body will be safe for any NPC to find. However, if the body is of a target that has been KO'd, for the most part accidents and sedative KOs do not keep SA. But there are 2 exceptions. The most common case is when you KO the target with a tranquilizer dart. In this case, the body is safe to find, even though other forms of sedative will not result in a safe body. The more obscure case is when you KO the target with a piano, which is only likely to be a possibility in contract mode. Again, this is the only accident KO that keeps SA when the body is found.
What happened to you?
What's more, with a KO'd target body that's safe to find, it doesn't matter if you drag them afterwards. The body will remain safe to find, so you can theoretically drag them into the perfect place for another NPC to see in order to lure that NPC to the body, so long as you're not seen dragging them. An exception to this rule is if the target was sitting down at the moment you tranked them. For whatever reason, the long standing up animation that happens to a target while sitting will just void the safety of their body once they're found. If the NPC finding the body is a main mission target, they generally go to investigate it and then lock down.
Did you say I need help?
If a guard sees the body before or at the same time as the target, then the target won't lock down and will instead just observe the scene while the guard deals with it. Civilians will report bodies to guards, luring the guard to them, and guards will wake up knocked out NPCs. If they find a dead NPC, they will eventually bag them and drag them to a designated morgue location.
Just take out the trash.
A more niche case is dropping bodies from heights. Bodies will make sound on impacting the ground from a height, luring nearby NPCs. One more interesting behavior to mention is queuing. If an NPC sees a body and there are other NPCs close to them, then you manage to take out the NPC going to the body without the others seeing. The next NPC who noticed the body or another NPC's reaction to the body will start to go also. They don't stop coming and they don't stop coming until all NPCs aware of the body are taken out, or one finishes investigating. There's other specifics I could go into regarding behaviors of different kinds of bodies, but we're already starting to reach a bit for things that count as lures. Sometimes there are good cases for luring an NPC using another NPC's body, but they are rare in general.
Good, we've got an accident here.
If an NPC is woken up to find that they've somehow managed to misplace their clothes, they will want to get dressed again. There are various spots around the map where NPCs can do this, usually at wardrobes, dressers, closets, whatever you know them as. After realizing the embarrassing situation they're in, they will start running to such place to get dressed. While they're running, they will temporarily enforce against their disguise if they aren't already enforcers to their disguise.
Oh, isn't that just?
Because of how embarrassed they are, they will actually ignore most things on the way other than 47 committing a crime, even running right over unsafe bodies without affecting your silent assassin status, until they actually get their clothes back.
What?
Now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty and obscure stuff. A bark, as termed in the game files, is a yell or scream made by NPCs. Other NPCs within range can hear these barks and will casually come to investigate where the NPC made the noise. That's it. It's a small detail that will be more of a danger than anything.
Ghost! Check the area!
A crowd lure is a variation of the bark lure, specifically triggered by crowd NPCs. If you pull a weapon out or perform a violent action in front of crowd NPCs, nearby real NPCs may hear the crowd and start walking to wherever 47 is at the moment they hear.
What the hell?
You can trigger certain NPCs to start talking to 47, either by prompt or by simply being seen in close proximity.
Coming up. Oil merchant.
Certain instances of these conversations cause the NPC involved to follow 47 while they talk to him, allowing you to lead them somewhere. The range of this lure is basically limited to the time span of the dialogue, and it can only be used with particular NPCs and sometimes only while wearing particular disguises. Not all conversations work like this. Some have the NPC just stand in place, and others may get cancelled if you get too far away from the NPC. It also varies whether the NPC will run or only walk to follow 47. One of the riskier plays to lure an NPC who happens to be both a target and an enforcer to you is to get spotted by them. This doesn't usually work with trespassing enforcement unless the NPC happens to be a guard in a non-hostile area who doesn't also enforce your disguise. If the NPC enforces your disguise, you can just run straight into their view and then start running to have them follow.
Target down.
Be aware that as they yell at you, they will be creating bark lures for other nearby NPCs. Alternatively, you can do certain actions like throwing an emetic gas bottle or picking up certain items that are illegal to pick up, but aren't weapons or illegal to hold. An NPC's reaction to seeing you do a minor crime or catching onto your disguise is to first get suspicious of you and follow you around asking who you are. This is really risky as other NPCs have the potential to also gain knowledge of you if they see you getting followed.
Excuse me.
Whether you regain Silent Assassin after killing the target you let spot you will come down to ensuring you stay away and out of sight of other NPCs. If they catch even a glimpse of you and have the exclamation mark status, you'll be compromised to them too. You will, however, have to make sure the target doesn't lose track of where you are, and they do have a goldfish memory, so you may need to remind them if they stop chasing you.
Sophie.
A bump lure is one of the more controversial kinds of lures, as it rather easily allows overriding VIP behavior to lure specific NPCs a significant distance using a method that isn't very challenging and really doesn't make much sense. If you distract an NPC with a bump, they will try to tell off 47. Quickly interrupting this dialogue with another distraction, such as dropping a coin or placing one and picking it up again, sleight of hand lure, puts the NPC into a weird state where they will just walk to 47's position. Picking up an item sort of clears an NPC's state, which is why in the case of using a coin to distract them out, you must pick it up again so that they don't. Other distractions work too, including bullet distractions. A common indication that the NPC is in a bump lure state is that they will have no question mark over their heads while following the lure, and they may also not respond to certain other distractions. It's likely possible to trigger this behavior in other ways aside from bumping, and it's not uncommon to end up causing this behavior by accident while attempting other lures, since bumping them is often necessary for turning an NPC to see an item or keeping them in place. This one's my favourite, though I may be biased as I did discover it and have made great use of it over the years. I recommend watching the parts on Visible Lure, Sleight of Hand Lure and Chain Lure and getting them down before trying this, as it is tricky to pull off consistently, but very powerful. Start off by doing a sleight of hand lure on an NPC using a phone,
Weird.
locking just them into the item. You should place it as far as possible from them in order to give yourself more time for the next step, as next you have to put the phone down in a new place and ring it before they stop and enter the confused state. The fastest way to put the phone down again is usually to drop it, but if they see you drop it, they'll reset completely. So if you drop it, you must drop it out of sight. Or you can place it, but this will add a bit of a delay to the time that you're able to detonate the phone. And time is of the essence, so balance how far you go accordingly. After putting it down again within hearing range of the original spot, ring it as soon as possible. Once the NPC hears it, they will be chained to the phone ring. But you don't have to stop there. If you pick it up again right after they react to hearing it, another sleight of hand, you can move it again to a new spot and repeat the process over and over. If they notice you pick up the phone, they will cancel out of it, so some finesse is required to get the right rhythm down in order to sleight of hand it successfully. Technically, this works with other devices that act as both visual lures and audio lures, but phones are definitely the most practical to use as you can more easily control it, and other devices don't tend to work great.
The hell?
An alternative and easier but less powerful way to do this is to instead get the NPC on the hook by throwing the phone, just like how you'd initiate an ordinary chain lure. Pick up the device again immediately, then put it somewhere within hearing range and ring. They will follow just like with a chain lure, but with a bit of a distance advantage thanks to the phone's 20-meter range. The downside to this is it is more vulnerable to VIP behavior from the throw, and doesn't allow you to chain multiple times. If you hook them by throwing, then once you ring, that's the end of the chain. So in this case, it's almost less powerful than continuing the chain lure with another throw, apart from the hearing range advantage. One more detail that applies to phone chaining from the visual hook is that you can cause a faster redirection after the ring if you pick up the phone and drop it again before the NPC even starts moving. This will cause the NPC to beeline straight to the new location without even having to ring the phone again. This can be a hazard though, as it will make the time you have to pick up the phone again without being seen by them very short, unless you are out of view. This is another one I discovered while trying to find ways to make Bangkok less of a pain. If you have a ceiling that is within throwing distance, you can throw a snail up to it and NPCs can hear this and come down. To get the NPC you want, try to aim the snail to land right in front of where they're facing. That's cool, but there's more. If you catch the snail afterwards and move it to another position while the NPC is still standing around looking confused, before they start walking, they will go to that new position instead. You can throw the snail again or drop it. You can even pick it up again afterwards if you can get the prompt, and so long as the NPC is already walking. You can reuse the snail without changing where the NPC ends up as long as you do it after they start walking. Basically, the last place the snail was outside of your inventory before they start walking is where the NPC will end up. And after they start walking, the NPC will no longer change destination. I call this redirecting technique the snail trail. Snail lure is pretty niche since it's specific to luring NPCs down from an upper floor, and a snail trail doesn't seem to be possible if the NPC hears the snail from the same room.
Next up, Ken Morgan.
Fellow Hitman player Clicker discovered that you can actually lure NPCs an infinite distance with the snail trail technique. So recall with the snail lure I said that once the NPC starts walking, they will no longer move to the snail's new position. Turns out I didn't do enough investigating, as Clicker found that the NPC will actually redirect to the last snail position if they get distracted during the initial lure. I'll leave a link to Clicker's video explaining this, but basically, so long as you distract the NPC, whether by bumping them or leaving a coin or something in their path, anything that won't override and cause them to abandon the lure completely, after they notice it, rather than react to the distraction rush straight away, they will first go to the most recent position of the snail. What's more, after they finish investigating the most recent position, if the distraction they noticed was something they have unfinished business with, they will go back to deal with that distraction. This method of distracting the NPC to update their homing on the snail can be done infinitely, and even with just a couple of redirections, you can find ways to lure NPCs across the map with this trick.
No, you did it, Morgan!
Weapon fetch is probably by far the most overpowered lure in the game. It can be considered a bit unsporting to use it unless there's no other option. It allows you to lure any civilian NPC, including targets, at infinite distance, and can be used on multiple NPCs at a time, so long as you use a different weapon each time. It doesn't require nearly as much tact or compromise to do as some of the other powerful lures. The key to this is what we covered in Confiscation laws about NPCs telling you off if they see you pick up the weapon after they have noticed it. In the case of civilians, they will run to report to a guard, but will cancel out of this if they see you pick up the gun at any point before they get to a guard. Now, many people think you can only do this trick within the first few seconds of the NPC going to report. But actually, so long as you can get in front of them and drop and pick up the weapon again while they're trying to report, they will notice the act of you picking up the same weapon. They will then try to tell you off for leaving a weapon on the ground, then go back to normal.
Please, could you conceal that?
But if you run away before they get close enough to stop and tell you off, they will follow you. Forever. Or at least until you let them catch up to your disguise and tell it off. Yes, I said disguise. If you change disguise anywhere while they're following, they will instead go to where you left the disguise and give it a piece of their mind.
Put that away. We are not barbarians here.
Why is any of this a thing? Well, it sort of makes sense if you're a guard for them to politely tell you off for leaving weapons lying around. It makes a little less sense that there's no limit to the follow range when they're trying to tell you off. But we haven't even gotten to the strangest part. You can actually do this in absolutely any disguise, and also while trespassing. The devs didn't seem to put any check in place that the NPC should be more than just a little irked after seeing you pick up a weapon they're trying to report when you're in a ninja disguise in the middle of a high security area. Probably assuming that it'd be impossible to trigger this behavior in that case, because if you have to get seen picking up the gun while trespassing or not in a guard disguise, surely you would get spotted by the NPC, right? But of course, since NPCs don't respond to peekaboo while reacting to a weapon, we can pop out from behind cover, pick up the gun for them to see right as they first begin going to a guard, and then get back behind cover before they actually spot us doing a crime. In this way, we've triggered the behavior that should probably only happen while we're not breaking the law.
Jesus, put that gun away, man.
By avoiding the only thing the game has in place to actually prevent it.
Okay, safety's on again. Standing down.
Agent 47. 47. 47. 47.
So, jeez, that's it. I can't believe I did this. This has been so many months in the making. 30 different ways to manipulate NPC movements in Hitman World of Assassination that have been found by Hitman players over the course of 8 years, ranging from obvious to insanely complex. I hope this video will help people think they know how to play this ridiculous game. Big thanks to the Hitman community and all the players who I'm always learning new things from and trying to live up to. If there's anything I've missed in this video or if something new comes up, I'll be totally gutted, don't at me. If IO Interactive are watching this, please don't break our toys, but also thanks for providing such awesome games that cater to a niche audience like myself, with so much hidden depth that we're still finding new ways to play it all these years later. I look forward to future games like this. Alright, that's all folks. Thanks everyone for watching, and insert YouTube call to action here. Oh crap, I forgot to write the